Before we begin, thank you very much to Hellbond for joining the Patreon campaign over at patreon.com/TJOmega. Just in case you missed it, we did hit the milestone for the Beast Wars reviews. Those will be coming shortly, as soon as I get all my last ducks in a row, and as soon as the Patreon dust settles. Thank you very much, everyone, for that show of support, and I hope you enjoy what is to come, because it will take a lot out of me. But I'm happy to do it for you. So let's talk Arcee. When we went through Big Bad Toy Store, it kind of got me thinking about not only the the vitriol for Earthrise Arcee's mold and the upcoming Legacy Prime Arcee and all of its issues that people are starting to nitpick at, but it made me think back. How many times has Arcee actually gotten a good toy? You know, and we'll go generational here, not just G1, though G1 really is kind of the focus here, because we have to keep in mind the 86 cast was designed first, and then toys were made of them, as opposed to everything else where the toys came first. So a lot of those designs were not really meant to be in actual 3D space. And most designs have come up with pretty good ways of capturing most of them, except one. So let's go and we'll take a look and see the history of Arcee toys. Now, before we begin, I do think it's important to actually acknowledge that there was a prototype. An actual G1 Arcee was actually in development, and it looked like this. See, on the downside, it's based on an original model, so it wouldn't have been accurate. And of course, the orange is weird. Pink and orange are not colors that really should go together unless you are eating cotton candy. Unfortunately, this never happened, which is weird because it would have been the Arcee that uses the most of her G1 kibble, or her like the most of her body to make the vehicle mode. Someone in third party. Like, how many times have we seen this? Someone make this. Just make, like, all the G1 toys that didn't happen so we can fill in spots. Make a DevCon in G1 style. Make movie characters in G1 style. Just like, I've got slots to fill. You know, I've got no Arcee in my G1s. So, this is more amusing than anything that actually would have seen production. Though, ironically, it probably wouldn't have been too bad of an attempt at her, given everything that's come since. Now, the first time we got to see Arcee as actual plastic was in BotCon, where they did her out of the Transmetal 2 Arcee Transmetal 2 Black Arachnia mold. Excuse me. I'm looking at Arcee, not a gigantic Transmetal spider. It's an interesting forced in character change, isn't it? This was basically just we have a grand total of, I think at this time, like 2 molds that were designed strictly to be female. And one of them was going to be Arcee, and apparently Black Arachnia more than Airazor. It was back in those days when BotCon just had to repaint a character in another character's colors and call it that character, and everyone ate it up. And now I kind of miss those days. I kind of miss that craziness. The toy itself is not great. It's huge kibble, huge shells. She has a lot of balance issues. So yeah, not a terribly great toy. It's definitely, as an Arcee representation, I would not call this one of the good ones. We move on to Binaltech, and this is, again, we had a mold lying around. Let's force a character into it, and eventually it became Arcee. It was originally, ironically, going to be Black Arachnia. And that did not play out, so instead we got Arcee, and it took them forever to actually get this toy into reality. Like many Arcees, canceled over and over again. Of course, it is, again, not a good representation of Arcee as a character. It's Decepticharge in white and pink and fleshy like salmon. A really ugly salmon color. It's weird. Yeah, this is also not one of the good ones, and it's definitely not what Arcee should have ever looked like. We move on to the one we saw in the Big Bad video, and this one, I think in hindsight, is a good RC toy. Compared to what we got, it's a good RC toy. I do think you go with the Takara version, which is cartoon accurate colors and does away with the black. But regardless of which one you get an RC that uses a little bit of a robot into the vehicle mode. You get a little bit of proper transforming. Not all of her vehicle is hanging off of her back. Most of it, but not all of it. I mean, of course, it's got its issues too. You could, back at that time, you would say this was one of the lesser figures in Thrilling 30. And again, in hindsight, it's likely the best G1 style RC we've gotten at retail level anyway. But still, a little bit weird with the big childbirthing hips and all that. But at least, hey, that actually gives her the bulk to actually incorporate her vehicle a little bit. This exists too. It's her RC's head slapped on a different character's body painted pink. But ironically, the only RC that has an Earth mode car, weirdly enough. Titans Return. Now, if you're just straight up looking for something that's like RC, this is not going to be one of the good ones for you. But I actually am a big proponent of this RC toy because I think it's a roadmap to what RC needs to be. She needs to have some of her parts bulked out, especially in the legs and the arms. She needs to have a body that can actually carry alt mode kibble without resorting to a massive backpack full of parts. Among all the RCs that there are, this is the one that relies the least on backpack. In fact, it relies very little on backpack. It's really just her shield hanging off. And that's, at that point, that's mostly storage. Everything else you see, that's just her robot mode turning into her vehicle mode. Imagine that. It works like a Transformer does. This, of course, it's a remold blur. But starting from this point, I feel like you could blend this down. Get rid, find a way to fold away the kibble on the legs and do something else with the kibble on the arms. Maybe that could fold to the back somehow. Or like maybe that's what forms like her like pylons or like backpack thing. And there you have a starting point for probably what RC needs to be, bulkier and more solid in general, able to carry her own weight in her own alt mode. Unlike this thing, okay, so this one, the proportions are better. I will give it that. It looks like G1 RC, though it does have this thing. And I'll point it out on the masterpiece, but there's a problem that many of these RCs have had, and we'll get to that here in a bit. But this one, I mean, as an RC action figure, it looks nice. It's a great RC action figure, give it that. But I think because her entire vehicle hangs off her back, it's not a very well comprised backpack in the first place. And the audacity of like having half of it come off, turn into a hoverboard, and actually like advertising that as a good thing and a playable accessory. No, it's not. No, it's not. You can literally take it off. You can take the pin out and actually just have a car and an RC. She's basically a pretender. She's a pretender. That's exactly what she is. She's a pretender with a collapsible shell. And that's pretty much what you get for this RC toy. And no, it's not one of the good ones. No, this is one of the bad ones. A frequent Plastic Addict request. And yeah, I'm actually considering this one. And then we leave off with a Masterpiece RC. This one is... there's some contention to this one as well. For the most part, yeah, it's good. I think it's probably the best attempt they have made at an RC. I'm not a fan of the changes to the proportions. I think a lot of people aren't a fan of that. For starters, they added a lot of roundness to RC, and they did it here too. They did it on this figure as well. They did it on the Thrilling 30 to an extent. RC's midsection is supposed to be boxy. She's not supposed to be all round, curvy, hippie like that. She's supposed to have more boxed off, Transformer-esque shapes instead of looking like a woman wearing some futuristic jumpsuit. And then, of course, they rounded her off. They arched her back a lot. They basically sexed her up, which is what Japan does, especially when they're dealing with more expensive figures because it gets the perverts buying it. Not saying you are if you bought it, but I'm just saying Takara hedges bets like that. In this case, and then of course, you've got the sagging chest, which I always thought was weird. It looks like they did that for the Nightbird retool specifically, but still, again, extremely little. Only that chest piece incorporates into her vehicle mode. Everything else is just hanging off her back. It collapses a lot better, but it's still not great. The problem with Arcee is her design was never meant to transform or have a toy. It was forced in because the writer of the movie insisted on having a female transformer. Sunbow didn't want it. Hasbro certainly didn't want it, but he put the pressure on and actually got to include Arcee in the movie. And that meant she was never meant to be in the toy line. Even if they prototyped her, they still said no. They still didn't want a girl in their boys' toy collection. So what you end up with is a design that is literally impossible to do what it does in animation. Even at the masterpiece level, you can see just how extreme the shell and the kibble is to make it possible. A good Arcee toy that is show accurate is literally impossible. It's like perpetual motion or a tolerable Nickelback song. It's not possible to exist. So we have to accept kibble, and we have to accept, and just hope that it comes out as clean as possible. Now, when we extend beyond G1, we start to get into good realms. Here's Energon Arcee, the beginning of Arcee as an archer, by the way. And for its size and its time, this was actually pretty good. In fact, she was actually a good bit more posable and playable than some of the other Omnicons of her era. We have Movie Arcee in a terribly blurry picture because this is really low res for some reason. I actually really like this one. Aside from the fact it looks like most of her face has been blown off, I do think it makes a super slick motorcycle mode. Love the blend of black and pink on her. I think it looks very, very cool and really should have been how she looked. Speaking of looking like she's been blown up, a lot of people ask me why this toy didn't make it on Plastic Addict, and that is because it was gifted to me by a friend who did not want it on Plastic Addict, or didn't intend for it to be on Plastic Addict, genuinely doing me a solid by buying it for me. And very grateful for it, so straight up review it was. And I tried to look on the bright side for the same reason people tell me that I should do the same for Demolishor. It's a unique design. My stance here is she can stand up, Demolishor can't. So that is how I differentiate the two. Also, her arms are good for more than just holding her up. Yes, I'm using any excuse I can to defend my stance on Demolishor. I have mental issues. Now, this toy is, again, not a good Arcee toy. Not a good Arcee toy. And it gets worse. Let's take that same design that doesn't work and we'll give it entirely too small engineering. But that's how size accurate they were to the rest of the line. This is how they have to scale. Again, ironically, this was gifted by a friend. I still don't know what to do with it because, again, unfortunately, it's not a great toy. None of them were. They're just too small. They're just way too small to actually be workable. They're like mini-cons that try to get too complicated. Beyond that, animated Arcee is fine. Here again, when I talk about a roadmap with Titan's Return Arcee, look at this Arcee. Look at her. The legs are a big chunk of her vehicle mode. She doesn't just have, she uses like some of that vehicle mode kibble for her skirt rather than just cramming it all on a backpack. The backpack is just her rear fenders and wheels. Everything else is incorporated somewhere else or hanging off of another part. And it's great. This is a fantastic rendition. It doesn't even use the chest as part of the vehicle mode bulk. It doesn't have to. That's what a good job that it's doing. Animated was really good, people. The engineering on animated was really, really good. And I can't stress that enough. We get into Prime, and first edition Arcee was actually really, really good. Incorporated the wheels in the legs really well to tuck them away. Great proportions, really sleek, sharp look all the way around. This, if we are talking completely objectively and encompassing every Arcee toy there is, I would call this the best Arcee figure of any iteration of the character, period. It just comes out fantastic. Prime RID tried it again at a cheaper price point. It still managed to hit most of the bright spots. It did definitely rely a lot more on shell and kibble backpacks. But for what they were working with, especially because they were brand new to a lower budget, I think it came out pretty good. And yeah, then there's the dragon-inspired Beast Hunter version, which I also think looks really cool. Dragon or mermaid, I can never quite figure it out. Still, she looked cool. And that is, again, where she became an archer for the second time. And then we have Cyberverse as one of the most recent Arcee iterations with G1 flare. And this one, again, uses almost exclusively shell kibble on her backpack. And you know what? I don't dislike it for that. For one, she has heel spurs big enough to compensate. And for two, the show made no argument about what she was going to be. She has this massive shell hanging off her back in the cartoon as well. This is part of her character model. I am completely fine with that because they aren't trying to be unrealistic. They know what she's going to be, so here it is. And for that, yeah, I call her one of the good ones. So I think we're about half good, half bad. Arcee is a hit and miss design and character overall. So, we're talking bad, good in hindsight. I would call it bad just because it's not the greatest representation of her. Good, bad, mixed. And then once we get out, good, bad, good, great, good. So when you get away from that G1 design and start doing your own thing, you can actually make a good Arcee toy, as it turns out. So if anything makes my argument that we need to redo Arcee and actually rethink the way Arcee works as a design, I think it's just that. Looking back at how even this does not look great and does not function great, and it's still the best we got. I think that says something. And I think it means it's time to diverge. And it's time to figure out how Arcee can actually be the type of toy she deserves to be. So let me know what you think. What is your idea for what a good Arcee toy is? Let me know in the comments below. And this might not be the only time we go through a character toy by toy like this, because I think it's an interesting breakdown to see how they have changed and evolved over the years. So let me know down there. Tell me who you might want me to do a similar video to, examining them throughout the generations. And hopefully I will see you then. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.